So welcome to High Road Training Partnerships. Why are they important for ECE and EDU apprenticeships? We're with High Road Alliance and we'll be starting shortly. Please put your name and your affiliation in the chat. And welcome everyone. We have a jam-packed hour. Also in the chat, I am putting a link to the CAI Bidders Conference, which happens right after our workshop. And just in case any of you didn't enroll, you can still enroll. And the State Chancellor's Office Bidders Workshop will be starting right at 2 p.m. So we're going to move from High Road Training Partnerships in our sector right into hearing from the State Chancellor's Office about what they're looking for in the next round of CAI grants.
1 second here. Hold on. Technical glitch. I need to
just tell me if you need me to share.
No, I came off the front. I can't go back up. There it is. Okay.
Okay. So while you're here again, put your name into the chat. We'll be starting as soon as Peter gets the slides back up. Welcome everyone. You're at the High Road Training Partnership overview for the ECE EDU Regional Joint Venture. And we will be talking about high road training partnerships in our sector. And we've got a few people waiting in the waiting room. So let me
1 second here, guys. Hold on a second.
Let them in.
One moment.
Okay.
Well, I seem to have come off the front slide.
Yes, you did.
Okay, there we are. Okay, now
You're
I can share. I think so. Now I can share it again.
Hello, Adele. Welcome.
Hi, folks.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Good. We're going to be starting, Adele, and maybe could I embarrass you and talk about where you're moving on to?
Of course.
I'll do that as part of the introduction. So we still have some people that have RSVP that will still be joining, but I'll be letting them in as we go. So welcome to the High Road Training Partnership. Please put your name and affiliation in the chat so we know who's here. We're going to be starting now. We're going to be looking at HRTPs and their role in apprenticeships, especially for our sector. We have some sector specific introductions of concept and then a little bit of time for questions. We'll be rolling right into the 2 o'clock CAI grant overview being hosted by the Chancellor's Office. If for some reason you did not enroll, I've been dropping the link into chat. So you can just open that link and sign up. If you want to go to any part of that, they will then let you write in. So I'll keep dropping it in as we go. So welcome, and you are being recorded. I'd like to, first of all, welcome Peter Simon and Jennie Mollica from High Road Alliance, and they can tell you a bit, I'm sure, about what High Road Alliance is and why they have such expertise in high road training partnerships. And we are going to focus, as I said, on what HRTPs are and then how they relate to ECE and EDU apprenticeships. And before I move from Peter Simon and Jennie Mollica's presentation, I want to welcome Adele Burns, who's our apprenticeship sector director. She is apprenticeship director for the Bay region over all sectors. And I appreciate that she's been partnering with us at City College. And hi, Monique is here. So Monique Pascal, our City College apprenticeship director, just joined us. But Adele will be moving on and has a new position, and you're muted. So if you want to say anything about it, Adele, you have like 1 minute, but she will be working for the statewide Department of Apprenticeship Standards, or
sure.
Even bigger.
I'll give the 1 minute.
Okay, so, October 1st, right?
Yes, exactly. So on October 1st, I will shift my seat at the table, but decidedly not leave this work. And I'll be working on, I will be the Deputy Director of the California Division of Apprenticeship Standards. And it's a role that's intended to be policy focused, policy and strategy focused around trying to pave the path to 500,000 apprentices, which of course includes this sector. So it's been fun to partner with Kathleen and with Monique on this, and I imagine I will continue to be a strategic partner to many of you. So excited for the conversation today.
Thank you. So congratulations, Adele. And we're so glad we spent time lifting the ECE and EDU sector with you in your new role. That's especially wonderful. So we're very proud of you. So Peter and Jenny, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Okay. Hello, everyone. This may be the longest title of any PowerPoint we've ever done, but welcome. I'm Peter Simon with the High Road Alliance. Just really quickly, because we have a lot to cover. Jenny and I formed the High Road Alliance a little over, maybe now a year and a half ago, to address in writ large equitable career pathways. And in that work, we've worked with many community colleges, many adult schools, unions, community groups, workforce boards, and it's been really fascinating to really be involved in helping to create a number of new pathways. And in that, we're also working with High Road Training Partnerships, which we're going to talk about today. I'm a ex-community college dean, and I'll pass it to Jenny.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennie Mollica, also really happy to be here. The work you're doing is very important. Peter and I have a range of experience working with High Road Training Partnerships. A lot of what we're doing as High Road Alliance is supporting the complex partnerships that need to come together around these apprenticeship programs and involving many important players. And so we're excited to be here and talk with you all today.
Great. Let's go to the next slide.
So I can share the objectives for today. We have a slide on this. So we have just an hour before this CAI Bidders Conference that Kathy just shared. We want to briefly go over just the framework and essential elements of High Road Training Partnerships as those have been defined by the state. And we're going to talk then a little bit more specifically about HRTPs in the context of ECE, EDU, and teacher apprenticeships. So that's going to be a chance for you to hear a little bit from us and then to have some dialogue about it, sharing ideas about how the HRTP model might apply in early childhood and education, and what that might look like for you all. So we're going to have some time at the end for discussion and certainly for your questions, using the chat box for that initially, and we'll see if there are chances to come off of mute and dialogue about it a little bit.
Okay. Well, if we had a little more time, it'd be good to do a doodle poll, but I'm assuming some of you have been attempted to be familiarized with the High Road Training Partnership model. High Road Training Partnership was initially funded in 2017 by the State Workforce Board, and it's a very ambitious framework in terms of where workforce development is going. And there's 3 pillars of HRTP, and I'm not going to read all this to you, but it's really, they all have to focus on equity, job and job quality, and climate resilience. And if that sounds like a tall drink of water, it is. So what's interesting, we'll talk about this more, is the importance of this model is that it's really where the whole state is going around funding workforce development. So next slide, Jenny.
Yeah, so this slide sums up some of the essential elements that you'll see as themes if you start to look through the High Road Training Partnership materials that are on some state websites, and we'll share with you some places to look. But the California Workforce Development Board has published a good amount of documentation of what they mean when they talk about this approach and this model. And these are really some of the core things to keep in mind if you're embarking on starting a new or strengthening a High Road Training Partnership. So one thing is that the problem solving that goes on around identifying hiring need, identifying needs in communities, problem solving, workforce development, training solutions. It really is industry led. So these are partnerships that really center industry voices in saying what the problems are that need to be solved, and then pursuing solutions to those. Industry here meaning, well, and here is a reference to the third bullet, employer, union, could also include in thinking about industry, the worker voice coming out of the workplace. So that third bullet is really emphasizing incorporating workers' own wisdom in that problem solving, that design of a partnership and design of a program. And you see here the partnership itself is a priority. So making sure that energy, resources, time, effort are going into building and cultivating that partnership. With workers at the table, with industry at the table. And then a result out of that is that the education and training that's offered through these training partnerships is truly industry driven. It's responsive to industry need, and it leads people participating in the training right into those high quality jobs. There's a great resource that you can find at the link that's given here. It's on this California Workforce Development Board's page on high road training partnerships. And it really goes into much more detail about these essential elements. There's a lot here to read through, really great descriptions you can find there.
And we put this list here. Again, the state, some websites are not that valuable, but the California HRTP, the state board's website, is like a wealth of information. And I'm just showing this list both because it's really, if you really want to get your mind around what HRTP partnerships look at, these are all links to one-page summaries of each project. So it gives you a pretty quick idea of the range of what's being funded. And just want to point out that there's sort of a mythology that they're all having to involve the union and management. And if you start digging into it, you see that that's not actually the case. Next page, hold on.
Yeah, here we provide a few links to some of the resources that have really stood out for us. And you'll see there the link to the California Workforce Development Board's page for this. There's some really great briefs that have been produced by the UC Berkeley Labor Center that's been a partner in this all along, really highlighting some promising practices. So a good opportunity to learn from those lessons learned. This piece by the San Diego Workforce Partnership is their statement as a workforce board about how they define quality jobs. And I think as you start to grapple with what is meant by quality jobs and what does that mean for the ECE education world, that could be a helpful resource. And then there's been some formal evaluation of HRTPs because the state has been investing in this approach for several years now. There's been some kind of thoughtful reflection and evaluation, data gathering. So it's summarized in a great report there.
Okay. Well, and this slide, which is a slide, honestly, I put together when I was talking with maybe some of you on this call to a group of community college administrators, which is why get involved with HRTPs. And as I mentioned, the framework that we're talking about, the High Road Training Partnership framework, is really showing up in requests for proposals for a number of different funding streams across the state of California. So it really, I'll just say that the governor, the labor agency, EDD, all these people who pay for job training programs have all subscribed to this model. It's really, in terms of the lofty goals of the HRTP, it's really a chance as training providers to kind of take our relationship to industry to a new level of partnership. I can just say, as someone who's been on the technical assistance team for HRTP, that it's really amazing to be part of some of these partnerships in terms of really sort of upping the game in terms of how much people are collaborating. Clearly, HRTPs are going to play a key role in the post-pandemic recovery. And just jumping ahead in terms of that, you'll see that in terms of the government's commitment that they're putting $100 million into next year's round of HRTPs, which is more than doubling of what they did in prior fiscal years. And again, for those of you who are, paying attention to this at the community college, it really increases your outcomes in terms of all the other funding streams for workforce development, like strong workforce, the student-centered formula, and Perkins. All of those are all the boats are heading in this direction. I'll just say that. Also, Jennie, go ahead. I think you're the.
Yeah, we put this slide together because Peter and I were reflecting a bit on just what's to be said about the relationship between HRTP and apprenticeship. Are they one and the same? Does an HRTP have to be an apprenticeship, or should all apprenticeship programs be HRTPs? What are we talking about here? Or are we sort of stumbling over our terms? But I think it's helpful to know that one of the real elements of HRTP that's one of those essential elements that's really at the core is this partnership that's focused on just what's the best solution to the problems that have been identified. And very often apprenticeship is coming up as a good solution. It's sort of ensuring some of the job quality pieces. It's building in a pathway that can address some of the equity pieces. It's a workforce solution that sometimes fits. And so you see a subset of HRTPs that are really focusing the partnership on developing an apprenticeship. And the fact that the employer is right there at the table, kind of driving the training design, means that an apprenticeship is a viable option. Whereas developing an apprenticeship without an employer at the table would not work. So I think there's something to be said about the value of that partnership approach when developing apprenticeships. That said, not all HRTPs are apprenticeship programs. They have not been required to be, and so there isn't a requirement that there be an overlap there. As apprenticeship program developers and supporters yourselves, you will probably note that many of the essential elements of HRTPs are really built into the apprenticeship model. So it may be an opportunity to think for yourselves, in our case, as we've developed apprenticeships or as we are developing apprenticeships, what are the ways in which our investment in those apprenticeships could meet those requirements or meet those key elements or address those three pillars of HRTP. And we can answer any questions about this or have some discussion about that if helpful. It's kind of at the core of this conversation today.
Yes. Just really quickly, also, in terms of, again, the partnership really being the core focus of an HRTP, we just thought we'd throw out the sort of things to, partners to consider. And I know you all talk about this probably all the time, but who are your current educational partners? The array of who are your employer partners, and that could include people on your advisory committees, all the things in this list. Are there other employers to engage? And within that set of employers, who would be the most likely who might be interested in apprenticeship development, if that's the way you want to go? And just from what we have learned about your work with the RJV, you guys are super organized. So figuring out, is this a regional approach? Is this a sub-regional approach? And how is this all going to be coordinated? These are, again, just things you're going to have to think about. I'm definitely not going to read this whole slide to you, but this was just in talking a lot with Kathleen, that these are some of the sort of the throw out what is the landscape. And I think I certainly don't, you probably know about this far better than we do, but just that there are clearly some specific challenges in your sector, particularly financial, but also that at this moment in time, there's also some great opportunities, which is one reason why we're having this discussion today. And we're going to send this PowerPoint to you all with the links and everything in it. So maybe this is a good time just for people to raise some questions about what we're throwing at you here. Please.
Can you go back to the slide before? Because that kind of highlights some of the
Sure.
issues around the sector. Thank you.
Sure.
And then Peter, just to clarify, is it your opinion that future workforce dollars will be contingent on having an HRTP in place?
No. It's more the sort of shape of it. In other words, when you think in terms of the principles, how are you addressing equity? How are you addressing job quality? And what's the impact on climate resilience, which that third one throws some people for a major loop, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's more that than actually having a funded HRTP.
I see. But future dollars from the state chancellor's office, I mean, you had said earlier that having an HRTP would put people at an advantage. So I'm just trying to link.
I think having a program that addresses the concerns of the HRT
okay.
puts you an advantage, because not everyone's going to be an HRTP. In fact, not everyone's going to be an apprentice program. I just want to say a really good job training program may be the right solution to what you're probably trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to create a bunch of round holes and square pegs here. We want to solve the problems that we're facing, if that answers your question.
Yeah, and before we get into general questions, can you talk a little bit more about a regional approach to HRTP? And has this been done in other sectors? So
absolutely.
Tell us a little bit how that might look, because I think individual colleges might feel like, okay, one more thing. But if we have regional HRTP structures that address some of these issues, how does that look in another sector? Give us an example.
Well, I work very closely with California Transit Works, which is in the public transit sector, and that is very much a regional HRTP that covers, at this point, all of Northern California. There's actually 5 localities: AC Transit, San Jose, Stockton, Sacramento, and Golden Gate in Marin. And it's actually a consortium of 5 sort of mini HRTPs of labor management partnerships and unions and transit agencies, and for around bus drivers and mechanics and the light rail systems. And they work regionally, and actually are now talking with Los Angeles about becoming a statewide HRTP. So it's really addressing the sector writ large, but still work going on at the local level, because it's not just policy, it's those partnerships are the key.
Okay.
So wouldn't you say, Peter, that the HRTP partnership umbrella can be small or big,
right,
to accommodate need or to accommodate stage in development? I mean, it can start out as a small one college, one employer, and then if it's successful, it can grow. If there's need identified, it can grow. But there's no set expectation of it being a certain size. Or
no, I mean, one HRTP I've worked with is specifically the Port of Los Angeles and the Longshoremen's Union, which is not an apprenticeship. It's figuring out what to do with all their jobs when automation comes in and makes them all unemployed. When the robots unload all the ships, what are they going to do? So they're building a whole training center just to address that question.
Well, in our sector, we don't think that's going to happen. I haven't heard rumors that robots are going to be caring for children yet, or leading classrooms. I don't think that would work. So I think we're safe there. Yeah. But on behalf of the folks on the call, I know many of them who are joining are, I would say the climate is folks are very overworked and stressed, and also are hearing from employers in their areas that they have staff shortages and hurry up and get these students through because we need to hire people yesterday. So I think with all that said, what, I guess there's a capacity issue around, doing one more thing. So I think what you're saying is clearly we have to have linkages with employers. We have to have employer leadership, and maybe a regional approach is more viable, especially for smaller colleges that may have one person who's just trying to coordinate everything. But where do people go?
Well, I'll just say, as an ex-community college administrator, that you also, I mean, you're already probably working 2 people's jobs already. So the trick is to get people in your administration, the people who worry about how you pay for things, involved in this kind of project, because there's great benefits for the college, and it should not be you necessarily engineering these funds. You have to get the people above you committed and engaged. That's one piece of advice. And we'd be glad to talk with them if they want to talk with us.
Mhm. Okay, would anyone like to either enter specific questions in chat or come off mute? We have time for a few questions.
Please.
Looks like Lori.
Lori? Mhm.
So, Peter, if I understand this correctly, this is like a framework from which to really understand and to implement if we are going to apply for the CIA grant. Is that my understanding? It's like a framework.
No, actually, it's a framework for the High Road Training Partnership. And that's why we're trying to be clear about High Road Training Partnership is really about how is a partnership you're developing addressing workforce issues. Apprenticeship is one of the primary ways, particularly these days, that will be how you do it. But it's not. So the CAI grant, which is one reason why many of us are going to migrate over there, is specific money through the state chancellor's office to pay for the development of apprenticeship programs. That's a different funding stream. It's different objectives. It's more on the ground. How are you going to do it? When?
Well, in clarifying, there is a separate funding stream that is for high road training partnerships that's traditionally been out of the state workforce board, but now is sort of looking for where's the convergence with the work that the chancellor's office is promoting. And we saw the most recent RFP was a kind of partnership between the chancellor's office and these HRTP programs. So that's to Peter's earlier point that there's increasing emphasis from all directions on HRTP as a model, but in the past it has been a very separate funding source.
Okay, that's
from
what
CAI.
I needed. Thank you.
Okay.
That's what I
Okay.
needed.
Cool. Other questions? And this is not, I mean, I can see how people get confused. Okay. It's not just that you missed something.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of re-emphasize that point, because I think the example of like how HRTP is coming into this apprenticeship space is a great example where like, you know, and lots of people are getting these 2 grants sort of confused and combined in their brains, and I don't blame them at all. But this is a great example of like CAI, California Apprenticeship Initiative, is a funding source that's, you know, been around for a little while, not that long, but a little while, and has like a cycle of grants that go out. And they decided to do like a special grant with an emphasis on HRTP. And that, you know, we just saw the announcement of those grants. And it was kind of an interesting grant because I think only 4 awards went out statewide, because you had to both be an HRTP and have an apprenticeship program in collaboration with a community college. But I think it's a great example of where like they're going to apply this framework, this high road training partnership framework to existing funding streams such that those who have an HRTP are prioritized in the funding list, right? So what we're now in with apprenticeship is like just a general open call for any apprenticeship program or pre-apprenticeship program.
That's non-traditional.
Regardless. Yeah, exactly.
Non-traditional.
Yeah, with a priority on non-traditional. But there's no like, but what's interesting is that even in the footnotes of that RFA, it says that next summer there will be what they call an open funding round or rolling funding round for HRTP connected apprenticeships. So basically it's like HRTP is kind of a framework that is prioritizing capital distribution.
Right.
And we can, it has its own pot of money, like Peter and Jennie just said, but we can also imagine this might sort of be a sort of investment philosophy by the state applied in various contexts, which is why it makes so much sense to be forming these partnerships in this industry.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to throw out really quickly, I think it was an earlier slide that we hopped over this point. The next round of open new high road training partnerships is projected to be open up in this coming January. So it's not next week, but there's time between now and the end of the year to be thinking about how you might coalesce some of these many partnerships you already have into a position where it would qualify for some of this HRTP money.
That's why our thought was to spend some of our time today, not talking through the specifics of who are the partners we're involved with, but really looking at each of these three pillars of the HRTP that were on the first slide, and just asking ourselves the question and having a little discussion: how would we respond to that pillar? How do we respond to that pillar by what we're doing? And how would we frame what we're doing to address equity, to address job quality, and to address climate resilience? So we have a slide on each of those pillars to kind of lay out what some of the key elements are that are being put out there by the state as worthy of our consideration. And then we wanted to sort of pause on the next slide and have this discussion. Come off of mute, share your ideas, brainstorm a little bit, because this could be the beginning of our collective thinking about how to get an HRTP grant, for one thing, but also how to just start to embrace what this framework could mean for ECE EDU, and to be able to enter that conversation so that there's an ability to compete for these grants. So if there are no further questions, are there any other general questions before we launch into that? We're happy to respond to those.
I'd like to thank Adele for, clarifying that it's linked kind of informally right now, but as Peter said, I think the writing's on the wall that there might be a more formal linkage between HRTP and apprenticeship in the near future. And when you said January is far off, it's not. It's already October. It'll, I'll be looking for Thanksgiving turkeys pretty soon. So I feel like it's not that far off.
That's true. That's true.
Don't you mean Christmas trees?
Yes, I don't, whatever. I feel like, Happy New Year, everyone. So how is our sector, how does it shine in terms of equity? I mean, primarily a female sector, many disproportionately impacted students, English language learners. What else? What makes us shine in terms of equity?
A lot of bilingual students.
Yep.
Which offers equity to the children coming into the programs.
Yes.
Also starting more inclusion programs for children with disabilities.
So equity.
Economic diversity as well.
Yep.
Are there things about the programs you offer that could make them especially accessible to the diverse workforce that you hope will benefit from them? I think that's one angle, is around increasing access.
One of the areas that we discussed is for the students having free childcare available to them, but not just free childcare, but also free elder care, because we found that a lot of our students are not only caretakers for children, but also caretakers for elderly members of their family. So that's one question of, are we keeping ourselves limiting in a box in terms of our thought of what is it that restrains our students from coming over and being on campus? Is it just childcare, or are other needs that we could potentially address because they're caretakers for someone maybe that's a dependent adult or an elderly adult as well, so elderly person as well.
I think we've also learned a lot through the last 2 years, about designing our courses to be more effective in an online environment. I think some of us feel a lot better about offering our courses. We've learned a lot about how to make it really effective for students who traditionally have been reluctant to take classes online. So I think we've been able, I think we've been able to expand our ability to offer classes in a lot of different modalities effectively.
Well, and I was going to say, Alice, I think that's a really good point about the online modality, and that addresses Renee's concern about childcare and elder care. I think also too, the other piece is that we have the ability to, we have grants that we can pay for students to go to school for free. So, I mean, there's the Promise Grant, there's other different grant funding sources where students can go through the program without any cost to them. And I think that's important looking at equity, right? Especially if we can create a pipeline, even maybe before college and high school, and we can train people prior to leaving high school to do some of these jobs as an entry level to the field.
Yeah. Is there anything to say about how you make programs accessible to bilingual students or sort of support English language learners that's so important in the field?
Well, we've had at Chabot, we've had a Spanish speaking cohort for the first 4 core classes for 20 years. And we've looked at ways to expand that to continue it so they can continue to earn units. And we did it once and it was very successful. It just became such an administrative, too much of an administrative task for us to be able to handle. But I think that's another thing that we've been, as a field, we now have open resource textbooks that are translated into Spanish that are free. So.
That's great. And who are you with,
Yeah.
Alice? Where do you
Chabot
work?
College
Okay.
in Hayward.
And Alice mentioned cohorts, and I think that's another strategy of our model would be cohorted instruction, embedded tutors.
I would also recommend having counselors that can speak their respective language so that they're also getting that support outside the classroom, not just in the classroom.
Just knowing this and listening to this, I mean, of the areas of HRTP, your sector is like a slam dunk on the equity front, right? You guys have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Peter,
We
I
just
was
have to
thinking
do
that.
it.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you went over the 4 pillars, I was thinking, but isn't that best practice? Isn't that what we're going to be doing
Right.
anyways?
Yeah, you do that every day. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next 2,
Okay.
because the next 2 sort of will maybe stretch our brains a little more than this one.
Right.
There's maybe more challenge to them.
Yeah, and the next one is job quality. And again, in that list of resources, there's a really good piece that was put together by the San Diego Workforce Board. If you're wondering, what do we mean by job quality? I encourage you to look at that link. But just really quickly, this list, and these are challenging in your area, some of these, is families sustaining wages, jobs with benefits and pensions, a clear career ladder, which you do have in your sector. How do you incorporate worker voice? And how do you promote a healthy work environment? And that can mean a lot of things. But what are people's thoughts on this piece? Who would like to break the ice on this one? We stumped the crowd.
I'm wondering, this is something for you for sure, because you know so much state and nationally that I don't know. But I just think this is an area where our area struggles, right? Because of the pay and things like that. But will some of this change with, the TK stuff that's going around with the requirements there? Like the career ladder and advancement opportunities, is that something that some of these will be addressed, do we think?
I think it can. I'll just answer. We have some hands up, so I don't want to take this, but I was just telling Jenny and Peter on EdJoin, I saw competing job openings for substitute teachers in K-12, TK-12 actually. And they were topping each other for a daily rate, starting at, $125, then who's going to give me 150? And then, no, we're going 200 a day. No, we're doing 250 a day. So yes, the demand will, I think, cause some wage explosion. Joya had her hands up.
Please.
Yes, hi Kathleen.
Hi.
Hi. I just, with regards to the messaging around the job quality key elements, it is an on-ramp to a viable career. Similarly, like other areas that make lots of money, they start out with low wages. Of course, we need to demand higher wages, but it is an on-ramp to a viable career. And the messaging is because of that ladder that is aligned in high quality, there's leadership development opportunities at each stage of our sector. And there's opportunities to grow and advance your wages. So the messaging is important because not all of us on this call are at, minimum wage jobs, and many of us are in early childhood education. So just wanted to share the messaging that it is an on-ramp to a viable career and eventual living wages.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of opportunities, and it's lots of interdisciplinary opportunities in our work.
Yes.
Maybe I love the interdiscipline, but how do we make that clear for students even before they decide on a path? Because the reputation is that if they if they go into this field, that they won't be making a lot of money. So I think maybe a key element, in whether it's marketing or whether it's getting out high schools, nonprofits, whomever is referring the students, is to communicate with them that there are these opportunities. I don't know. What do you recommend?
Well, what's wonderful about the classes in our field is that it is interdisciplinary. So if you're starting at the younger age of high schoolers, you don't lock them in immediately into the ECE classes. You provide the opportunities of classes that count towards other sectors that are GE, but aligned to our industry, like, just sociology of the family or, child growth and development. Those courses are general education transfer curriculum courses. So you provide the opportunity for them to take those interdisciplinary classes and provide those on-the-job training experiences for them at the high school age so they can choose if this is the right fit for them or not. Because there are some components that they may find out about as they're matriculating through our sector that will contribute to other areas of working with children and families. So the messaging is there is opportunity and advancement, but again, it is an on-ramp, and we are choosy. We don't want everyone in the field. You have to have high knowledge, skills, and competencies to work with our young children.
Yvonne just posted in chat, if you want to download it, the Santa Cruz Childcare Career Plan. So some of us have, career planning documents. And I think also when you look at reaching out to the 30% of high school graduates who do not plan on going to college or don't enroll in college, we're offering an academic preparation plan that will help them no matter what career they choose. It's also who we're targeting. Alea has her hands up. Hi, Alea.
Hi, Kathleen. Thanks. I think the thing that I'm thinking about, with the sort of other youth worker after school workforce, is that higher wages don't always also attract people. What was interesting is that during this summer, lots of school districts got lots of money to run summer learning programs. And in some of the districts that were offering like 75% higher wages, they still weren't able to fill all of their positions. And so, I think this idea of looking beyond wages and the benefits and pensions is important. I mean, that's a real issue that we need to address, especially because so many of these jobs are funded through public funding. So that's an area that needs to address at like a systems level. But I think individual employers, networks of employers, communities like this can really clarify, as people have been saying, the career ladders, the opportunities for worker voice and agency, like just like with the last topic, that's what I think the strengths of ECE and EDU jobs comes with, right, is a lot of opportunity for worker voice and agency, and ensure as employers, that healthy and safe work environments, what that means, especially in this time of COVID. So, to me, I think it's like, what can individual employers and networks of employers really make gains on? And I think it's, these last 3 bullet points. And then we know as a field and as a sector and cross sector, the wages and benefits are something that we'll consistently need to work together on at a systems level.
Thank you, Aaliyah. And if I can introduce that, Aaliyah was a major mover around the effort to look at apprenticeship in the school age, after school environment. So, and we've done some work in that area. So thank you.
And I would say, Aaliyah, that's a great point you make about how gains can happen locally or regionally. And I think part of the push of a high road training partnership is that when employers are engaged so deeply, when everyone is around the table focusing on these 3 pillars, there can be some goal setting, there can be some dialogue that can result in changes that come out of the partnership itself. So some of your attention on these pillars can be the aspirational piece of, in convening these conversations, we're hoping to create more of a place for worker voice and agency, or we're hoping to make some shifts around healthy work environments, maybe not at the major policy level, but maybe locally, regionally, or who knows, maybe with influence on some of those bigger systems that you referred to. Maybe we should touch on the next pillar.
Yes,
Peter.
Let's do it.
This is a tough one.
I don't think
this
so.
is a tough one for many. Well, it's a little harder to wrap your head around sometimes. I mean, some of the early HRTPs were in sort of green industries or green jobs, and sort of made the case through very quantified. There are a lot of tools that HRTP documents have provided around how to quantify, the impact on the climate when your workers do this on the buildings they're building, that kind of thing. And I think that as HRTP has grown and touched other sectors, there's been a lot of creative thinking about how does this apply to our sector, and how do we think about it, and how do we message it. So, obviously, if you can calculate a reduction of greenhouse gases, or even say anecdotally that this is happening, that's one thing. Definitely, if you're working with industry partners to look at a bigger strategy and making that part of the conversations of the partnership, that could be a piece of this. Community co-benefits can be very sort of distant benefits that a community gains when there's attention given to climate across workforce issues and hiring and employer practices. And it can be engaging with employers who themselves are working towards some sustainability goals. And so being part of a partnership with them is somehow helping them to further those goals. Really curious to open this up to you all and see what you think is the fit here between this pillar and ECE EDU.
Do you want to do the next slide as well, Jenny? Or do you
I think I did. It's just the next slide is just the question, I think, posing the
No,
question.
the next slide, we also had this quote.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, there's a great quote here. Well, here I see people are sort of posting some resources in the chat as well. I'd love to take a look at that. Here's one that that we came across, and the link here is on the bottom. This is about kind of making the case for care professions, whether that's in early childhood and healthcare, and making the case in the context of climate crisis and an increasing awareness around perhaps if we, with our input, some increasing awareness around the importance of these jobs that allow for families to go to work, that allow the many people to participate in a shift that needs to go on in the economy, and these being the foundational jobs. So there's some great quotes here. We just wanted to sort of entice you with these quotes, and then articles like this one, and I'm imagining the one Aaliyah posted could be really good sort of conversation pieces as a group came together to think about the HRTP model.
What are other people's thoughts on this? I know Kathleen, you
Well, I
have
thought
some-
many of us are preparing future teachers. So clearly, all the green economy needs teachers. And if we're preparing future STEM teachers and increasing the awareness for children of environmental practices and needs, I don't know. I think we're kind of central to the discussion. We're creating teachers. So. Alice and Renee had comments. Alice, do you want to go first, and Renee?
I was going to say that I just got an invitation to a seminar on childcare solutions for women in construction and the trades. And they have really unique needs. And, you know, a huge issue in childcare is convenience. One of the problems is if we have childcare deserts, people are having to drive a long way to drop their children off. And so we need to expand this so that everyone's got something in their community that can provide where they can get care. But really, the thing is that ours is the sector that allows all these other sectors to do what they've got to do, right?
Right.
No.
Renee, did you have a comment?
Sure, that would be great. You know, when I first saw this at Green, I thought, oh, well, the work that we're doing, we have a park management, a parks and recreation and management, land management, environmental studies program on our campus. And they work very closely with our CDC and our teachers to teach the kids about have an outdoor lab and appreciation of the land that we're on. And hopefully we'll be building a little farm for them soon, a garden, so that they can know where the food comes from, because that seems to be a big disconnect with children nowadays, is knowing actually how their food is sourced and where it's coming from. But in terms of the small carbon footprint, you know, one of the, as I mentioned earlier, between the elder care and the child care, one of our local partners, so the Saratoga Area Senior Center, they actually run a ride program. And so if the student has a need for their senior and their child to be in the respective adult daycare child facility, or that they're a student here, they can share a ride. So be part of that free transportation that's available. And so you talk about reducing carbon footprint. Well, transportation, which is already a major issue, you have 3 people that are going to their respective areas with 1 car, which is, you know, for free. And it's most of them are electric vehicles anyway.
Marvelous.
Great point.
Yeah.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes. Anyone else want to comment on climate resilience or have questions?
I think we maybe want to go on to next steps.
Okay.
And Kathleen, this is back to you.
Okay, so we have our next ECE, EDU, RJV meeting. We have lots of acronyms in this sector. Will be in October. Most of you have received the invitations. I believe it's the 13th. I forgot to look it up, and I can't multitask when I'm doing
So
Zoom.
13th.
Yeah, 13th. So we're going to be talking with employers in this sector about what they need and about their needs for both the workforce, the incoming workforce, what their current needs are, and we will pose some of these HRTP questions to them as well. So it will be a good chance to hear from employers in our sector and do some additional thinking around this. And then Peter and Jenny, what would be your suggestions? I really like the idea of having a regional HRTP. What would be your?
I have to
suggestion?
say, I learned from Adele last week
Mhm.
that there are 6 or 7 entities in your region who are all going for CAI grants under ECE. And what a great framework to coalesce an HRTP with all of them together. I mean, there it is, in my opinion. If you can all figure out how to kind of band together and make a collective impact.
Okay, well, I
That's
can
my
send out a
suggestion.
call.
Okay.
And then we would have to talk to BACCC, I think, to, because we're all just individual colleges and this is a
Right.
regional joint venture, but the structure of it is sometimes we're a little bit siloed.
Okay, well.
I also just wonder, like, and maybe this is part of the topic for the next conversation, is like, what are the steps to get an HRTP going? I think today has been a great overview of like, what is an HRTP and kind of understanding the principles behind it. And I think maybe that next discussion can be, hopefully it can be a little bit about that, because I think I've definitely heard from you, Peter, in the past, and Jeannie, it has to start with the employers, right? And that the employers need to be central at the table.
Yeah.
And so while it's awesome that we have all these colleges doing these programs and each college sort of has an employer or a set of employers, I think the question is like, how do we initiate that HRTP and probably bring employers to the table? So maybe that's just a fodder for the next conversation.
Well, that is why the thing on the 13th is specifically for that purpose, to have the employers tell all of you, us, exactly what they need and to frame it with them with this in mind. It's not just a random, hey, what's up kind of conversation. Okay.
Okay, so you'll help us structure that.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 2 more minutes. Again, I'll put in the link. I'm sure you all have this for the next State Chancellor's Office Bidders Conference, which is coming up. I'll put it in the chat again, just in case you didn't get it. But any last questions?
I just want to also say via your network, we will send out this PowerPoint shortly to all of you.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
And we hope that one day soon that list of HRTPs on the State Workforce Board website includes early childhood education.
Yeah, there weren't any.
Time.
I know.
It's time.
It was all plumbing and electrical and
it's a little tilted.
And it was very skewed, I thought.
But we're looking to the future.
HVAC. Yeah. So we need some caregiving on there. Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And we'll see you at our next meeting. And thank you to Jenny and Peter for, let me get my little applause button. So thank you for helping us with understanding HRTP.
It's what we like to do.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'll send out.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I'll send out the PowerPoint.
See you in a minute.
Yep. Hi, Monique.